Simu OMG says, am I female now? I'm so glad you asked. I've practiced an answer to this question because you're now asking, I think, the third time this stream. And my answer is, I wouldn't be so presumptuous as to say that I am female now. That would be like going to pilot school and on day one saying I'm a pilot now. No, I'm getting there. One day. If I pass all my tests. Pass. That's funny. I'm just dressing up? Well, I don't know if I'd say that either. I mean, my driver's license says female on it. My birth certificate does not. But I could change it. And perhaps one day I will. I'm a full-fledged pilot because you decided to be a pilot and that's how it works in your book. That is an interesting observation, and it's very similar to, if I can find this, I've shared this link with so many people that as soon as I type any letter that's in it, it automatically comes up in Chrome. This link right here is where I stole the pilot metaphor from. Personally, if you see someone and you say you want a desire of insert any desire, you don't want to decide to be that or get that desire. You personally, you don't want to say any more of your opinion or gender because it's controversial and stuff. Well, I mean, originally I just wasn't going to get into any of that conversation here on the stream at all because I made an explanatory video and I can never do better than that. It's the greatest thing I've ever made, but also because it's a distraction for that very reason. But, you know, here we are already. I've thrown caution to the wind today. I'm not trying to engage you in a debate. I'm just saying I don't understand what you meant by that sentence. Oh well, you don't have to know what that was about. And the great thing is, I don't have strong feelings about this sort of definitional argument anyway. Like, I have my own sense of, you know, who or what I am or will be or was, and I don't feel strongly about it. It's just what I understand words to mean to me. If someone else wants to define those words a different way so that I am or am not in that category, then that's fine with me. People often think that they're making some kind of gotcha point when they do that, and it bothers me a little bit when they treat a definition as meaning more than it actually is, which is just what we mean by words. But it doesn't bother me if I don't fit someone's definition of whatever about reality. Material conditions. As a good Marxist that I am, that was a joke to myself because I've encountered so many of those types. They don't like me very much. But now we're getting into real spicy territory, which I'm not here for. What you're trying to say in a short and simple way, desire doesn't equal wanting to actually be or get that thing. So you're saying people have fantasies sometimes that they may sort of like the idea of getting something, but they wouldn't actually want it. You know, like every kid that says, I want a pony. They like the idea of having a pony. They wouldn't know what to do with a pony if they had one. And probably if they sat down and thought about it, they would realize a goldfish is a better pet for them at that time. Well, you know, that's sort of what I thought for a long time. About this, at least. Well, maybe that's not quite true. It's basically if something doesn't take anything from you, why not embrace it and make another human come? Yeah, I do think that people often are too quick to assume that something takes nothing, especially when what it takes is very insignificant. They're often too quick to round that off to zero, which is fine in theory, like if it happens once, but then it ends up happening again and again and again, and pretty soon a lot's been taken a little bit at a time, and it's hard to really blame anyone for it, but ultimately the blame lies with the logic that got you there, I guess. You don't see how someone having gender change to take anything from you? Correct. Well, so, how spicy do I want to get here? Spicier the better? I think people are often too quick to assume that the cognitive burden that it sometimes takes to remember certain things and act certain ways has zero cost. Maybe being a little vague. Anything that, like, I would have to remind people that's not just a burden for me to have to correct them, it's a burden for them to have to deal with being corrected and then to change their behavior or thoughts or whatever in the way that I am suggesting. And I think it's a mistake to look at that as something that I'm necessarily owed or that has no cost for them, or that we should just assume that, yeah, they're going to pay that cost and they deserve no concessions or anything for that. It's something that they should do, but we should acknowledge that it's going to be difficult for them, and not just in the sense that we need to be patient and realize that they're not going to get it all at once, but we should go out of our way to make it easy for them, because it's kind of an imposition that we're asking. It's an accommodation that we're asking. Just like when you want an accommodation for something at work. You are You may be entitled to it because of disability or whatever, but there's an understanding of what is reasonable in that situation and what's not. And there are some obligations that the person who's asking for the accommodation has in order to make that happen. Oh, another thing, maybe this is a little less spicy. The whole pronoun circle thing. Like, it's not a coincidence that I skipped over the whole topic of that in my informative infomercial, because my experience with the now standard pronoun ritual when people are introducing themselves in a new group has been nothing but negative. It seemed like a waste of time before, and now being on the other side of it, it seems like even more of a waste of time, because now I know that I'm not even benefiting from it. But everyone assumes, hey, what's the cost? You know, it takes us half a second to go around and say our pronouns. Why not do this? It's a nice thing to do for these people who have such a hard time in life. But the benefit of it is often so negligible or even negative that the cost becomes much greater than that. It seems like a basic thing to ask someone you have somewhat of a relationship, don't you think? Well, the thing is, 99.9% of the time it's no surprise. My first day at work, there's orientation classes, and there's, a few dozen people in Zoom meetings, and everyone introduces themselves with pronouns, and 100% of the faces that came up, I could have told you before they opened their mouths what their pronouns were, because they look like men or women, and it turns out that they are. And it turns out that they want to be referred to by the same words that people use to refer to men and women by. The people who have a different preference that's non-obvious are a tiny fraction of the population, and so however small the cost is of doing this, we have to remember that we're all paying that cost, and very rarely is anyone getting a benefit out of it, even potentially. And then in my particular case, I was theoretically the person in that situation who would have benefited from it. But I didn't, because putting me in that situation means making me choose between outing myself or misgendering myself. And I did not want my first day at a new job to be the time that I suddenly decide I'm going to come out and do it to a bunch of strangers. Meanwhile, if I were to show up on day one looking like I do now, I think people would find it pretty obvious that at least I'm the person to ask, and they would feel better approaching me and saying, well, like people do in the chat here all the time, I've been asked 3 times today, are you a girl? For me, at least, that doesn't bother me. I mean, I see why people ask that, I understand, and I can give them an answer. A hilarious answer, but still. What I choose to do, I said nothing. I conspicuously dodged every opportunity to say my pronouns. Luckily, they didn't demand it, but it would have been real awkward if someone had asked me. For someone learning how to become better at this and give it 10 to 20 years to be completely integrated, that seems like a dystopian outcome. If that's just the standard way that people interact in the future, unless somehow there end up being a lot more people who are getting a benefit out of it, doesn't it seem like wasted energy, like time that could be spent doing something else? You don't think everyone will ask, well, that's good. I mean, maybe you're saying that social customs will have changed so that it's unnecessary. People will have integrated in a way that is more natural. Might end up being Gilead. You know, people love to shit on the US. It's a big place, and there's a lot of different experiences people can have. A lot of variety. It's certainly less homogenous in terms of what it's going to be like, what your rights might be, what your healthcare experience might be. But if you happen to be getting the good end of it, it can be very good and oftentimes better than you'll find anywhere else. And sometimes the good part applies to millions of people. It sucks to be in Florida if you're a sort of controversial minority, but it does not suck to be in California. Or a woman in general, I guess I'll find out. You know, whatever happens in Florida doesn't affect people in California that much. In many ways, what happens in the White House doesn't affect people in California that much. They still don't have to deal with the reproductive health part of things. I suppose, yeah. But, you know, dealing with trans health is no different either, and can be very restricted and whatnot in many places. But this is sort of the point I was getting at originally. In many ways, the U.S. is one of the best places to be for that. Most parts of the U.S. at least. I've heard from people who are in Europe trying to get on hormones or something, and they're like, my doctor referred me to go see a gender specialist in 8 months. And then if I go see the gender specialist for another, 3 months, then I might get a prescription. And meanwhile, it took me less than a week. And that's not because I pulled any strings or anything. That's just how a lot of places do it here. And the law allows that, and customs allow that. It's Tara, is that me? Yes, Ari, that's me. Awari, whoever you are, that's me. Oh, so, but Awari, you've not seen the video, have you? I was afraid I wouldn't have an excuse to play it again, because Spooky Chicken had seen it. And now Spooky Chicken gets to be on the other side of the fence where we look at all the people who haven't seen it, and you're like, oh, if only you knew. You're in for such a mindfuck. You did. Son of a bitch bastard. No excuse, then. You did it was jaw-dropping? Thank you. It's the best content I've ever made. Johnny, you didn't see it. Really? You're not just pulling my leg, are you, Johnny? I appreciate your trying to cheer me up, but play for the new followers. Honestly, I suspect that a lot of the new followers came here from that, because I published it on YouTube like 2 days ago, and it has tripled or quadrupled in views. Last I checked, it is the #1 video on my channel in terms of views for the first X hours. And I thought, this is surprising. Why do people care about this so much? It turns out it's because I called it the Eggman announcement, and it is being promoted on a whole mess of Sonic videos. And people click through, so take them. Still very disappointed with the low level of cringe. You know, I do what I can. I certainly still do plenty of cringing when I review the pod, my faltering voice attempts, but like they say, I guess, we're always our own harshest critics. Maybe it's not really that bad. I refuse to believe that, though. To be honest, it's not there yet, but practice makes perfect. I really hope so. I feel like I have such control over my voice in the male range, and it's all the same axes of motion. I only ever take it in one direction. I think I have no muscle memory going in the other direction, and it's a lot to catch up on. It's like, I don't know, learning to tie a knot or ride a bike or something, like a physical coordination activity, not so much like building muscle. And there is certainly an element of learning, like, concepts and being able to identify and hear things, but then, like, it's actually putting those into practice as a physical performance. And then beyond that, one day, I will have to make that performance so second nature that it becomes first nature. We had a little Q&A segment, you know, after the first playthrough of the informative infomercial. I don't normally talk too much about all this stuff on stream, but I did. People had questions, and I had hilarious jokes that were attempts to dodge answering them.